Beach North CEO Connection. I'm Sharon Curcioli from Our Wonderful World Media and chair of the CEO Connection, which is part of the Small Business Advisory Council. We have an exciting program today featuring Charles Bender from Place of Hope, who has an amazing background and story. Our sponsor for today's event is Bob Goldfarb from Custom Clothing, who not only sits on the Small Business Advisory Board, but is also on the Leadership Advisory Council for Place of Hope. Bob will be introducing and facilitating today's program. It is the first time we are doing a CEO Connection virtually, so if you have any questions, please save them to the end and type them into the chat on Zoom so Marley can collect them and Charles can answer them during the question and answer period. I would like to thank all of you who registered and everyone watching from Facebook Live. I'd like now to welcome Bob, today's sponsor, to start the program.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bob Goldfarb. I'm with the owner of Bob Goldfarb Custom Clothing. We are a concierge men's and women's custom clothing business that works with the clients in the privacy of their homes or offices, designing suits, sport coats, dress slacks, shirts, formal wear, and for women, dresses, suits, and formal wear for red carpet gowns. I'm not going to take up a lot of time talking about me. I'm glad I'm able to sponsor this. I am a huge fan of Place of Hope and Charles. And in lieu of going on further, I'm going to do some intros and we'll go from there. So, Charles, first of all, thank you for being here today. Charles is the founding CEO of Place of Hope, a faith-based and state-licensed family-style residential child caring agency for abused and neglected children located in Palm Beach Gardens, Boca Raton, and the Treasure Coast. Charles earned his BA degree in sociology from Florida Atlantic University, go Owls, and also studied University of South Florida in Tampa, but now he's a Clemson Tiger fan since his son goes there. Charles founded Place of Hope in 1999 following many years of work with various housing, social, and human services organizations throughout Palm Beach County. He has participated in numerous community committees, task forces, special initiatives, and boards. He has been a team member of several other local leading organizations, including Palm Beach County's Housing and Community Development Agency, Adopt a Family of the Palm Beaches, and the City of Delray Beach Community Development Division. The majority of Charles' work has involved low-income individuals and families, homeless and substance abusing populations, and at-risk dependent children and youth. Prior to spearheading implementation of Place of Hope, Charles was a primary volunteer in the multi-year visioning and development processes while still a vision of Christ Fellowship. Charles, welcome. Great to see you. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Bob. Great to see you. And thanks for sponsoring this as well. And thanks to the chamber, the best chamber we've got in this whole area for sure.
Well, thank you. So tell us a little bit about your roots and how and where you grew up.
So, if people say, they ask me that question, I want to just say this, but then I have to tell the full truth, because I am a Florida native through and through. Everything about me is Florida. I love this state. Never lived outside of here, except I have to say I was actually born in Danbury, Connecticut, but my mom and dad moved to Miami when I was 4 months old. So I claim native, but I was actually born in Connecticut.
Awesome. And in your youth and as you were growing older, at what point did you realize that you wanted to have involvement in nonprofits?
Yeah, I really caught the vision for what I always call like the people helping business, if you will, although I have a very specific mindset on the better ways to do that. I'm a big believer in the private sector doing it as opposed to government taking the lead in it. I believe in the partnership, but I kind of caught the vision for the people helping business. Actually, I think when I was in college, so it was probably maybe my sophomore year where I really felt like, I want to do something, make a difference. And and so forth. And there's a lot of ways to make a difference. But for me, I started exploring the world of social services and so forth. A few years later, I found out that I was not a good social worker at all. And so I kind of started to move toward more the administrative fundraising side, and then definitely found my niche. But
Well, that's great. I know you're a very, very strong family man. Tell us a little bit about your family.
yeah, my wife Trish is an RN here with Lichtenstein Plastic Surgery, and we've been married coming up on 28 years in May, which is awesome. So we have 3 awesome kids, and now I have a son-in-law too. I might even have grandkids soon. You never know. But yeah, so I've Lauren, Emily, and Chase, and they are 26, 25, and 21.
That's awesome. And Chase goes to Clemson, which you're very proud of.
He's the Clemson Tiger.
I can see the football right behind you. So, so I'm just curious, how has founding and leading Place of Hope impacted you on a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it has always been, and it's a faith calling for me. So I just really feel like I'm doing what I'm called to do by God, and that kind of, for me, it keeps the excitement. One thing I can tell you is that I'm a social entrepreneur as well. I grew up with 2 parents that owned their own businesses. We were not a wealthy family at all, but both of them worked really, really hard at all hours. It wasn't, check the box and come in at 8 or 9 and leave at 5. It was all hours. And I watched them run that. And so I kind of took that on, but I knew, when I caught that vision to do something in the people helping business, I wanted to take that entrepreneurial spirit. So I mean, I literally go nuts sitting still. And so I've learned a lot here. But for me, it's been a faith calling. I always say my favorite thing that I do, because I'm coming up on 21 years here. My favorite thing that I do is team building. Some people might think, well, is it talking to Johnny or Susie out, and because I'm on one of the campuses here for headquarters. I love that, but really my favorite part is like doing what we're doing right now, getting the team built to support these kids and young people and families in our care. And I love it. Learned a lot about it over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. So, so with that said, I know you're coming up on the 20th year anniversary of actually having kids under your umbrella at Place of Hope. And I know that's coming up soon, and congratulations on an amazing 20 years of service that you've given to the community. Tell us about the origins of Place of Hope.
Yeah, so we were originally a vision and then an implementation level of Christ Fellowship Church. I was involved back then, became kind of the head guy between the pastor and the committee that we built. And it was just, it was way before we formed this nonprofit. It was about 5 years, and they caught the vision to do this on a trip to Romania, and came back here and realized, whoa, there's big problems over in Romania and all kind of other places all around the world in Eastern Europe, but also right here in Florida in the United States. And so just caught the vision felt like they were called by God to do something about it. Which is Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, it's all over the place. We're supposed to be doing this to help these kids. And because these are the neediest kids in our community by far. There's a lot of needy people, but kids who end up having to be in this dependency system are in bad shape, especially in Florida, where there's a move to really try to keep kids out of the system, do as much as you can before you pull them in. So by the time they get to the system, it's pretty tough. So they knew back then there was a need, but the issue became, if we're going to do it, how are we going to do it? Like, what are the core fundamental needs of the kids in the system? So we found way back, which is still to this day, kids end up in multiple placement disruptions for a lot of different reasons. Well, that's bad enough that you're removed from the only family and you go into a foreign system, if you will. But then all of a sudden you get bounced around to the degree that we've had kids in 40 foster families before they even get to us. It's crazy. You can't even imagine how far behind that sets them socially, and the additional traumas and falling behind in school. And then the other big issue is, how do you keep these siblings together if it's possible? Because even the American Medical Association says these kids should be together, they're brothers and sisters. There's additional trauma for removal and all the things that's happened in their lives, but then you separate them from each other. So it was really those 2 core things. How can we do that and do it successfully? And then from there, from this campus where I sit, which is where it all started, we've grown to be the largest provider from literally North Broward up to the Sebastian area up by Indian River. And it's just always been based on the needs that are presented by the system, the people that run the system, and the need. I mean, there was a front page newspaper article yesterday, if you saw it, on the status of child the child welfare system all over Florida and other places, and it needs a lot of help. But we've expanded based on where can we help additionally, which is how we got to where we are today.
That's great. Well, having the pleasure and honor to be involved with Place of Hope for the last almost 7 years, and being able to take a tour of the campus, which I strongly recommend to anybody who would like to find out what Place of Hope is doing, that you call up and take a tour and see what they're doing with the kids and how they're housed and how they bring in a foster parenting group to sit with their kids and actually be their parents on a daily basis, and how the kids basically have their regular day. They go to school, they have their chores, they eat together as a family, et cetera, et cetera. So I strongly recommend everybody doing that. So the community probably doesn't know about all the programs that Place of Hope offers. Can you elaborate on those programs, and if not all the programs that Place of Hope offers to the kids and the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, it started here on this campus on North Lake, which is we specialize in large sibling groups, other quote hard to place kids in care. Those are the kids that have bounced around the system, et cetera. It's based on the model that you just described a bit there, Bob. It's foster care, but we always kind of look at it. It's actually called neighborhood foster care now. It's a new codification with the state that we actually helped develop. But it's this idea that we take in these and employ full-time professional level therapeutically involved foster parents. So it's a little bit different than the scattered site model. That's this campus. We run one just like this in West Palm called the Kids Sanctuary Campus, right by the Turnpike and Southern Boulevard. And then we took over a campus down in Boca, if anybody's from that area, that was called the Haven for many years. And we actually took it over. They failed and went out of business and actually handed us their campus. We started with under 18 care there, and then we've switched that to a different model, which I'll talk about in a second. On this campus, we actually run an 8-bed emergency shelter for boys only. So when the state moves in for imminent danger and removes children because they have to, and they go to the next level, which is dealing with the judiciary for sheltering and so forth, they place them here with us. Off of this campus down the street, we moved into dealing with kids that essentially leave the system at 18, have nowhere to go. You've heard of them probably emancipating from foster care. It's a bad setup nationally, and there's really this idea that you're just falling off the cliff at 18. So we jumped up and did something about that many years back, about 14 years ago now, and we have Village of Hope. We have replicated that model down in Boca. So essentially, it's affordable transitional housing for people in transition. So it's not just former foster youth. We specialize there, but we take in all kinds of homeless placements. It could be single mom with children. It could be, a youth who, maybe should have been in foster care at some point, turns 18, family kicks them out, and then they have nowhere to go. And so it's a transitional program, affordable and transitional. We also run a maternity home for pregnant teenagers. We take most of our placements and referrals from the school district, so they're not all in the dependency foster care system. And then we've launched about a little over 10 years ago, the largest now traditional foster care model, which is you and I taking kids into our own homes. State issues the license, but we're their agents. So we do the recruitment, we do the training, we do the maintaining the license, supporting the families. And it took us a while to get into that model, even though that's the largest model in the United States for foster care levels and types. We took our time to get in because we wanted to make sure that we would do the opposite of what the system often does all around the US, which is recruits great people who are just in their mind want to do something great for kids, and then they enter into a dysfunctional system which doesn't support them, doesn't treat them right, and then they end up getting out. And so that just doesn't work for anybody. It creates more trauma. And so what we do is not rocket science. It's just that if you're doing foster care with us, we're supporting you and we're calling you back, and we're trying to provide you with all the different trainings that you need on an ongoing basis. We're loving on you. We're there for you because you're part of the team. We've grown that to all the way up into the Sebastian area. And so we're also, and I think you're going to mention this later, but we also serve quite a few survivors of human trafficking, both labor and sex. Some are international cases. Most are right here domestic cases. And so they're basically just brought in depending on what their levels of need are, and they're placed in our various program types and locations all around. It could be a foster home, it could be a maternity home, it could be aftercare. So in a nutshell, that's us, and that's what we do.
So I know that people would probably be very surprised to hear how many children are actually that Place of Hope is actually taking care of, either directly or indirectly. How many kids are involved now?
About 900 to 1,000 annually, but our daily bed, because we do a lot of different things, but our daily bed capacity is about 340. So it's quite a few. You know, it's I always say that they don't leave us at the end of the day, like a daycare program. They're literally with us 24/7. So 340 is a big number and a lot of liability, and it requires a lot. But again, we've got a great team of people caring for them, and the stats are showing that we're doing a great job as a whole. When I say we, I mean all of us, anybody that's involved. The model and the program is working. Right when I said that, I looked over and I saw Christine Shaw there. She's one of my, hey Christine, she's one of my advisory council members on our team. So you know, it's just really about surrounding these kids with great people. And you know, I always say it's so easy to say to a young person, you can be anything you want. You can grow up to be a congresswoman or whatever, and that's great. We should do that, right? But we should also show them. We should put them, especially these kids, we should have them in living environments that prove what you're saying. So you're not just saying it, but you're showing them. And so our model is really about that. It's about dignity and love and family and just surrounding them with productive, proactive people in their lives that can point them toward education and help them. We go around and we take these kids, our young people, to, especially in summer, all kinds of employers. Some of you have probably done it with us, where we just expose them to what's out there as opposed to just talking about it. And you'd be surprised how they just catch the vision and they just move forward with a plan. It's amazing.
And just to expound a little bit on the Villages of Hope, where the aged out young people are, I've been there also, and it's great to see that they have basically their own little apartment and they take care of themselves, and they're required to either go to school or have a job or both. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, you've got, I mean, we know in this community that we've got a big issue with the lack of affordable housing. And this is affordable, but it's also transitional. So you figure it's a very needy population in the sense that if we don't intervene as a community, they're going to fall through the cracks. And stats do show nationally that just looking at this subpopulation, kids exiting foster care at 18, which means they didn't go, there was no permanency for them as a child. They didn't get adopted. They didn't go home to a healthy enough family. And so they're exiting the system at 18. If the stats show that those kids do not do well at all. They're dealing with the legal system very quickly. Many of them get pregnant in the first year. Most of them are on some sort of welfare type programs or public assistance. And then a lot of them end up in prison. And that's not their fault. Well, they make the decisions, but it's not their fault that we as a society have allowed this to happen. So it's really incumbent upon us to create a bridge. And that bridge is transitional housing with the Villages of Hope. But to your point, you know, it's not the public housing model where it's yours to go and have your house. This is a transitional program where you've got to be focused on your goals that you set forward with us, but you got to be working, you've got to go to school at some level. A lot of these kids will, because of their bouncing around from place to place, they fall so far behind. They look at it, they're 18 and they're 2 to 3 years behind, and who wants to do that in person? So they quit. And so what we do is we encourage them to either get back in or at least get the GED. It's almost a requirement. You come into Villages, and they're not all from Place Hope. We accept from all kinds of different environments. The Lewis Center is a big provider of referrals to us these days, and other agencies. But you know, what we say to them is you've got to at least get this done because it's your ticket to the next ticket. And so, but then what we do is we just open up the floodgates of opportunity for them, but they've got to do it themselves. They've got to work, they've got to go to school, they've got to pay their program fee, which is essentially like rent. They've got to live a certain way while they're with us. It's not party town. It's a 2-year repeatable time with us. If you jump on and you're going after your bachelor's degree, we have some kids that stay with us all the way through bachelor's degrees and even master's degrees. We have a couple in law school right now, but it is a structured program that really has goals set into it while you're with us.
Well, that's awesome. It's an amazing program. So speaking about family, tell us a little bit about your Place of Hope family, including not only your staff, which is amazing, but your committee members and chairs and your volunteers that always step up to the plate on a yearly basis. Tell us a little bit about those people.
Yeah, I'll tell you that's, you know, I always get to do these interviews and so forth, but the reality is I've got my core team that's been with me here. Most of them have been with me about 15 years on the top level of our organization, 10, 12, and 15 years. And they're just absolutely amazing. They're the people running operations and finance and programmatically our therapist on staff that runs all of our programs, Gina Fazio. There's nobody that knows more about what we do than her. And you then take to the next level, our direct care providers, our foster families, our cottage parents, our people that are working in our shelter. A lot of them are here long term. We've celebrated just this year several 10-year anniversaries. they really make up the backbone of what we do. Because that's where the rubber meets the road, is how well are we doing with our kids that are coming out of really traumatic, bad circumstances. And we want to change catapult them in a completely different direction. It takes great people, but it also takes great volunteers. So, and it's at every level. So we have mentors and tutors, and we have people who just literally join our meal programs, so that, say on a Tuesday, we know you're coming, Bob, with a meal to drop off at one of our families. They know it's coming. They're excited about it, because that day they don't have to prepare a big meal for 6, 8 people. Some have biological children in the home as well. And so imagine how much easier that makes your day when you're trying to get kids to do their homework and get back from football practice and all these different things. And now you've got that kind of help. So volunteers do those kinds of things, all the way to the big group level. We have a lot of companies in town who will call us and want to do a big work day. And so they'll come out here and mulch for us, clean windows, pressure clean. The Breakers does it a lot with us. We've had a lot of realty firms that have done that with us. And so, it's a huge blessing. One, helps us save money, of course, when we can do that. But we use volunteers all the way through. And so, honestly, everybody's part of that team, however they want to serve. And what's been great, as I mentioned, Christine being on our advisory council, if you look at our councils and the people who make up some of these events, it's a wide variance of people professionally. And I really believe there's a lot of people that are out there that don't think, oh, what can I do to help that charity or this charity or that charity in the profession I'm in? Well, I can tell you there's a way, because, we're like any other business. We have every other component. There's something that you can do, whether it's, and some people don't want to do hands-on. They don't want to mentor or tutor. I get it. I don't even want to ever pick up another math book in my life. I get that. But some people really want to do that, and they can do it really well. So, but yeah, we would not be as successful as we are without all those various teams of people. One of the things you mentioned is like our co-chairs and our committees for our special events. A big part of how we raise our funds every year, we have our government contracts, but that is never greater than about 45% of operating revenue for us. So everything else we raise philanthropically, and a big chunk of that are these special events, Bob, which you've been obviously a part of a lot of them. And they span by community. As you all know, as a chamber, Boca Raton in South County is a whole nother planet than it is up here. And you jump into Martin, that's another planet. And then you jump up into, Indian River and St. Louis, they're all different. So we're literally doing special events in all those communities. And the backbone of that is our volunteers, our chair people and everybody that joins our committees. I mean, one that well is our Hope Bash we do every year. We do one up here and we do one in the Boca area there. And now we're expanding that to Treasure Coast. The committee here is about like 65 people are on that committee. So you can imagine everybody's sewing in and doing their part. And then at the end of the day, it all comes together, thankfully, So we wouldn't be good without it.
Yeah, I've been heavily involved with the golf tournament for a number of years, and now I'm on the committee for the Peninsula Dinner, which is coming up in November, which is outdoors and social distance, and we're looking forward to it.
Yep.
So it's been great to be involved. Here's an interesting scenario. So tell us how the COVID-19 virus has not only affected Place of Hope, but the entire foster care system in the counties.
Yeah, I'll start with how it's affected the foster care system. This may take you this may surprise you, where you might think with everybody home and we definitely know there's drug abuse issues in the community, and we know that people drink a little more when there's crisis around them and so forth. So a lot of times that'll translate into domestic violence and child abuse. I believe it is. Unfortunately, the system's down by about 40% in terms of kids coming into that. And I say unfortunately because if it was for the right reasons, I would praise it, and Place Hope would position itself to go do something else. It'd be great if we didn't have kids coming into the child welfare system. It'd be wonderful. But the reality is, because kids are not in school and the frontline folks are not seeing these kids on a daily basis, it used to be that school teachers were mandatory reporters. Now we're all mandatory reporters. So if you think something's going on at your neighbor's house, it's weird, and there's children being injured, it's actually it's incumbent upon you to actually call the hotline or the authorities. So, but nonetheless, it's always the school district and the teachers and everybody involved at that level that end up being the front line. So they see Johnny coming to school, and he's wearing the same clothes every day, and just different things like that, just red flags that pop up, bruises, and just different things. Well, that's not happening right now. So you got a lot of kids in very abusive environments right now. I can tell you, I can't prove it to you right now, but I know it to be the case. I've been doing this long enough that I believe that once things get back to normal from a schooling perspective, et cetera, we're going to see a huge spike of kids coming into the system, which is very unfortunate. I wish there was a different way to go about how we're doing school and so forth, because I think there's a lot of kids in imminent danger right now. I don't know if I even answered your whole question there, Bob, but.
I was just and also interested in the place of hope aspect.
Right. So for us, from a business perspective, I'll tell you, we took it very seriously from day one. So as it hit, and all of a sudden things were getting canceled at not just in the charity world, but just everything started to change, as you remember, right after kind of spring break and all that. We just really took a look at our staffing and at our expenses and everything, and immediately we trimmed our budget by about 9% immediately, which was not an easy thing to do because we're not top heavy. We've got just enough people to do what we do. And so we had to go in and make some really difficult cuts. Of course, we went after some of that PPP funding successfully, thankfully. But we also put together an emergency fund, a matching fund. I went to some of our significant level contributors and asked if they would come together and create a matching fund, and they did. And so we issued that out to the community. So anything that anybody gave was matched dollar for dollar by this group. That proved very successful. But then all of a sudden, one event got canceled, another event got canceled. We're a beneficiary of several large events, especially in the South County, that are put on by other organizations that we're a major beneficiary of. Two of those got canceled. So it's been tough. I guess, I feel like we're carrying it. We're doing okay, but we took it very seriously from day one and did everything that any other business that saw that coming needed to do. Looking into we start planning 2021 like now, as you know, with a lot of these events and so forth. It's really just hard to say where we're going to land with a lot of them, and they really ramp up with January and start going for us. So we'll just wait and see, but we'll be really vigilant about making sure we make the right moves going into 2021. So. But I will tell you in that real quick, Bob, people are generous. I mean, people are generous. And where we get nervous and so forth, and we got to make good decisions, and we got to run this place like a business. But at the same time, we've seen people really rally, businesses, individuals, all kinds of organizations stepping up, helping, and a lot of in-kind too. I mean, we got 2 tractor trailers full of non-perishable food in here. Thanks to my friend Wade Litchfield over at FPL. His church, who came out of another state, delivered 2 57-foot trailers of food in here, which we were able to bless a ton of people all over the place, not just our own. So a lot of things like that have happened that you just really almost couldn't have expected as well, which has been a big help.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as you alluded to earlier, and it's a underground problem that a lot of people are not aware of. And it's one that most people, if not all people, are not aware that Place of Hope is involved in, is human and sex trafficking on a general basis, but especially with kids. Can you speak to this and inform the audience about the proliferation of child trafficking among kids and teens, and what you guys are doing for that, and what everybody can do for that? What can they be aware of? What kind of signs should they look for when they go into places of business that might be using that?
Yeah, I think, we're living in this culture right now where it's easier to just look away, and it's also safer, and it's who wants to get themselves embroiled in a conflict, right? Or, be wrongfully accused someone or something. But different signs, but I can just tell you, generally speaking, if something seems out of whack, it probably is. If you see something that's very, very strange when it involves, especially people who look like they're under 18 years old with adults, typically older than them, and by almost sometimes significantly older, there's something potentially is going wrong. And so to be able to call the hotline, or even just the authorities, it's easier just to know that you can call 911 for these kinds of things. But I can tell you this is nothing new. What I'm thankful for is that the nation, people are talking about it. So that part's new. All the talk that you've seen in the last few years about human trafficking, especially sex trafficking, especially with minors, the level of conversation is very new, but it's been going on forever. It's probably the most insidious thing that we deal with. Probably one of the first cases we ever saw was we received a 10-year-old into our care who was pregnant, and come to find out that it was as a result of what now would be codified as human sex trafficking. And literally this young lady would have had that on her file. Back then, they just didn't talk about it like that. It was rape, and it is, but there's different things. It just wasn't talked about as human trafficking. And so, shortly after that, we received a young lady who was 12 years old, who was literally brought here by coyotes from South America. I think the mother was trying to do the right thing by getting her out of there and getting her into a better environment. But what the coyotes did was turn on her and basically steal her and take her and put her into sex trafficking for about 3-4 years. She got it together as much as she could and literally ran one day and found the police and came into the foster care system, and we got her, and she's been very successful in her healing. There's been case after case, but then as people started to talk about it, it just sort of changes. So for a while, we were actually running a human trafficking safe house. We no longer run that. We actually found that the model wasn't the most effective way to do it, but we still take in the victims. We still take in the survivors on any given day. The range of things we do, we have anywhere between 7 to 10 victims or survivors, but it's way more pervasive than people realize, and the healing process is it's really intense and long term, but we've been successful with quite a few over the years. One of the things we did get into the last couple of years, realizing that people really don't know what's going on, is that we did start to get into the side of educating folks. And literally especially before COVID, we were going and just doing presentations with our team about what to look for, what's going on in the community, what's happening on social media. Especially if you have kids, you need to know that these people are extremely strategic and insidious in their behavior and what they're trying to do with young kids. I'm sure you've all heard different stories. We see it, face to face, because they end up oftentimes in our care. But I mean, we've been at many places where we've been presenting with maybe 15 to 100 people in the room, and literally somebody will come up to us and say, I think something might be going on in either one of my own kids' lives, or I saw something on the internet that made me think that, or on my daughter's phone or my son's phone. So we got into the business of just really getting out there and talking to people. We did produce a film called Invisible, and it's on our YouTube channel. You can look it up, and we just encourage people to just play it, share it, because we just want, it's a great way to get sort of that 30 minutes out there. Everybody can watch 30 minutes, and just we've got some people on there that are thick into the business, so to speak, with the FBI and doctors and so forth, that speak about their experiences. But yeah, it's a real scourge in America, and Florida happens to be a hotspot by far, for various reasons. So.
Yes, it seems that obviously the states with the highest populations are the ones that have the highest issues. So Texas, Florida, California, New York,
Yep.
et cetera, seem to have that problem. In the making of Invisible, which, by the way, the entire title is Invisible, A Fight to End Human Trafficking, which to all of you is available on YouTube. Just look it up. It's about 28 minutes long. It's an amazing film to watch. It's incredibly compelling if you're interested in this and what's going on around this. What was the driving factor behind putting this documentary together, aside from having people be aware of this issue and getting people more involved?
Well, several things. One, from a business perspective, it was scale for us. I was hanging around a bunch of really smart folks down in Boca one day that run very successful marketing businesses. And they basically said to me, if we got to get this message out, you're not going to get it out with 2 staff members going and putting on a presentation for 30, 40 people, a couple times a week. We need to figure out a way to get it out to the masses of people with no hooks in it and trying to figure out where it even goes. Just get the word out there. And so that's the main reason we did it. So and listen, there's other great resources out there, a lot of them, people doing tremendous frontline work in this issue, but for us, we figured if we could do our little part, and these folks helped us do that and even paid for the film, that's the main reason for sure that we did it. The other thing is, I'm a big believer that I don't know if we'll ever eradicate domestic violence and child abuse at various levels, but I do believe that this is something we can measure in a big way, that if we educate especially young people about what's going on the internet and with social media, if just that, then if we can, literally, I know it sounds corny, but if we could just stop one case from happening, one kid from making a mortal mistake. You've heard the things about kids getting on airplanes, taking one-way tickets to meet somebody that wants to put them into modeling and all this stuff. That stuff's real. All that stuff is very, very real. And it should scare you if you have children, or people with children, about what these guys are doing to get, and even women are doing to get to the kids, and the tricks they're playing and getting into their emotions and so forth. And one of the greatest areas. And the other thing that we can do, and why we're educating, the other thing we can do about it here at Place of Hope is we can do high level foster care. So the kids that are already unfortunately in the system, when they're placed in bad environments and bad foster homes and bad group homes and so forth, which there are some out there, that's the first place that traffickers look for to recruit. That's one of their prime grounds for recruiting, is finding kids that already have trauma in their lives, have already got bad situations going on in their lives, all the breakups that happen over domestic violence and drug abuse and so forth. That's who they're looking for. So where's a great place to look? Well, bad foster care environment where they're unhappy even being there. So we're always vigilant about that, but it is the kind of thing that everybody needs to know about. And it is the kind of thing that, if we educate one kid the right way and they remember something like, well, I remember hearing about that. Maybe I shouldn't respond to this, or maybe I don't know if y'all heard the recent one where you probably get these texts. I get them where they want you to respond to a text. I'm not sure exactly what the ask is, but they're saying that they're trying to implant trackers on people so they can tell where you're at and so forth. I can't find out if that's actually true or not, but I know a lot of people are getting these weird texts. So, just to know that this stuff's going on at various levels and how insidious their recruitment techniques are, it's sad, but we got to be vigilant about it. We have to know what's happening. And I encourage people, we do it here. We look at what's going on our kids' phones, and they're not even our biological children, but we get involved and we stay involved like parents should do. And that's the best way we can stop some of these kids from falling into the wrong direction. So.
All right, to go with that was so compelling and such a great story about what's really going on and how people are probably not aware. But to change direction a little bit, you guys have been fortunate to just open up the Lane Center, a beautiful 2-building establishment on North Lake Boulevard, just east of the campus. And also you opened up your Treasure Coast headquarters in Hope Sound. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so what we do up in the Treasure Coast, it's a 4-county district, legally speaking. So we needed to be physically present up there. So we chose Martin County just because we had a little bit of a support base up there, but also we have some offices in St. Lucie and Indian River, but we wanted a headquarters up there to invest in the area. And so we chose Hobe Sound. We just finished building a beautiful building up there. It's a training center for us, but and some offices, and it's actually going to be used and already is as a community center in many ways as well. And so we built a great place up there that will serve all 4 counties, but as headquarters, but also we will be opening, it's built, we're waiting until season comes around, our first ever social enterprise open to the public coffee shop. So it's called Peninsula Coffee. It's again, I said I'm a big fan of everything Florida, so I had to name it for something for Florida. But the community up there is totally excited about it. They're amped up about us getting it open. Down here, I'm a big believer in social enterprise for charities. Another group in town that does a great job is the Lord's Place. They have several social enterprises. They get it, they understand it, and all that really means is that charities, by certain tax laws, we're allowed to do a lot of things that you might think are for profit in their leanings, right? The only difference is that, when we do profit, Charles isn't taking the profits home and the team's not, it goes right back into our programs. And so I'm a big believer in doing things that out at face value look like, they're regular businesses on the street, but they support our kids. And so we run a very highly successful thrift store called Treasures for Hope on North Lake. But, a lot of charities run thrift stores. Ours is pretty cool, I think. But we also, there's components to that a lot of charities don't have in their social enterprise, which is we own the property behind us. We lease out every one of those slots for boat storage and construction materials and semis full of stuff. And so we receive all the revenues from that. We also own Dave's Auto Body next door. We don't auto body shop. I don't know anything about auto body. I don't need to. He just pays us rent, and it's a great deal. And we take care of him. He takes care of us. But it all makes that P&L look right every year. And what happens is, in the thrift store, we can employ our kids, teach them how to work, a work ethic, and we can bring volunteers in and so forth. But at the same time, the net revenues are going right back in specifically to our Villages of Hope program. So the next portion of that was needing some office space that we never had for specific programs. So we started looking around and did a capital campaign, and we still have a little more to go, but it's very successful so far. And we bought a couple dilapidated houses on North Lake, went through over a year of zoning. Community fought us a bit, didn't want it there. but we won, and now we've built 18,000 square foot of commercial office space, no retail, just commercial office. And as of right now, we're almost at 100% leased out. We have three tenants at 3,000 feet apiece. We have our own offices over there. I'm not over there, but some of my team is. And then we did some executive office spaces. We have 8 in an executive office with shared space, conference room, etc. We had somebody just back out, so we actually have 2 slots open in there right now. But we're still excited because overnight we had 6 tenants, and then we're opening up a very unique kind of like a WeWorks type space. A lot of people we're kind of calling it a private members only coffee shop, if you will. It's right in there. It's called Peninsula Social, and think of it kind of like a WeWork space where there'll be a monthly fee for access. Bob, you were just over there with me the other day. And the idea is just for a lot of people, especially with COVID and just the nature of certain kinds of jobs, sales, people that are out on the street a lot, maybe not wanting to go back to their office or be in their office. Some people work from home. They don't want to work from home all day and night. And so we're creating this environment that we should launch by either December or January, where you can just come in, and it's kind of like a governor's club of coffee shops, if you will. It's very unique. I've only found one other thing like it out in California. And so we're hoping that really goes well for us. It's a place people can come in and have a great, meeting, a cup of coffee, and enjoy your time with someone, and not without all the noise of a typical coffee shop going on around you and people listening to your conversations and so forth. So we're excited about it. It's very unique, and so far people are excited about it and got people lining up to join it. So that's our social enterprise in a nutshell. We see us doing more of that in the future, just because it really helps the bottom line in a big way.
First of all, I want to thank you for this great presentation today. It was really awesome. But lastly, tell us how those who might have been affected by this, who might have interest in getting involved with Place of Hope, tell us how they can do that. Tell us how they could take a tour of the campus to get a better idea about what we just talked about. And so give us a little bit of insight on that.
We haven't quite ramped up our tours again with COVID yet. We plan on it soon, but the best way is just reach us through placeofhope.com. And you can see on there what the different job opportunities are, but also volunteer opportunities. We're really hoping, I think very soon we're ramping back up with the big, like the corporate business groups that are going to come in and, help with, like I said earlier, with, weeding and just, team building days where they can come in and do the mulch for us and those kinds of things. Because again, that's a huge help for us. And then there's the individual side too, our meals program in different ways to help if you really desire to tutor a young person. There's always a need. And so there's all of those opportunities. And then of course, as you mentioned before, just on the fundraising side, obviously we always need the support, and we have the highest ratings from Charity Navigator that you can get in other rating agencies as well. And so it's a good investment to do it here, because we're careful with how we spend it, and we're careful with, making sure that our programs are working, or we simply wouldn't be doing the program if it didn't work. But there's serving on those committees for those kinds of things. Checking out this Peninsula Social Space as a way too, because I think you'll be, surprised about how really cool it is. But all the different ways that with the other charities that are out there, there's a lot of great charities in our community and a lot that need help as well. But there's a lot of ways to engage right here and directly or indirectly impact a young person's life.
Well, that's awesome. Speaking to those of you who are on the Zoom call, if you have any questions, we have some time where Charles can answer those. If you could put those in the chat. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Charles for being with us today, sharing all the wonderful things Place of Hope has done and is doing in the Palm Beach North community. We at the Palm Beach North Chamber are really grateful for everything that you do. And again, we appreciate your time today. I'm not sure if any of my cohorts have any questions, but I've asked a lot, so I'm pretty much good. Again, let me just talk about Invisible and the Invisible. Oh, here we have. Does Place of Hope still deal with kids on an international level? And so I'll let you ask that question first, and then we'll go to the next one.
Yeah, only typically through what might happen through a trafficking scenario that they're international. Then that's usually when we involve, the authorities, and a lot of times we'll work with the Legal Aid Society. We do get some international Hague related cases that get referred to us. The one thing good that has happened systemically in Florida, and it actually, I really think it happened in a lot of ways. It started with the whole human trafficking issue, is they created, for instance, in that arena, they created the Safe Harbor Law in 2015, which basically awakened the system to the fact that you could have an underage victim of human trafficking. So in other words, somebody gets arrested, they used to arrest for prostitution, put him or her in prison. The very next day, the pimp's getting them out of prison, putting them back to work, and nobody's alarms went off in their heads or anything else, the fact that she was 15. So now with that law, it's awakened people. There's other things happening in other parts of the system where that's happening as well. And so that's a good thing for the system as a whole. But there are times when some of those kids are from out of the country, and there's just different processes they have to go through to be placed into the system, but then we receive them. So yes, in some ways, but usually indirectly.
Okay, the next question, I think you kind of covered, but I'll ask it again. Where does your major funding come from? I know there's some governmental assistance that is involved, and then the rest is fundraising, I guess.
Yeah, one of the reasons I believe have been successful is that we just have a generous community. I would much rather be appealing to people than to government personally. And so we do both. So everybody in this child welfare arena doing foster care and so forth, we all have very similar contracts, if we're in that same space. And so we just did the state for that and their partners. But I would, I think I said earlier, for us, it's around 45% of operating revenue at best. So we're raising 55% privately. We do that through events. We do it through grant writing to foundations. We do it to people who would just partner with us and give. And then just special initiatives that come up, over time. I think, Bob, you did a beard growing thing for us once, right? And did a Facebook fundraiser. So it's really cool because we even have kids that are literally out there doing lemonade and cake stands and giving their money to Place of Hope. So it's really a beautiful thing that the giving base behind Place of Hope. Some people might think, oh, they're so successful and they got these beautiful houses, they must be wealthy. No, it's not the case. It's just that we have a responsibility to take care of what people give to us. And then people turn around and they want to be a part of it. And it's at every single level. And so I would say the biggest part for us is private philanthropy. It's the family foundations, it's the individuals, it's the corporate sponsorships and all that. Always need more, always trying to meet new people because we're doing a lot and it takes a lot. But I'd say the better part of how we do what we do is through the private model, which is the philanthropy.
That's great. So more on the business side, what qualities do you think make a great leader of not only a nonprofit organization, but also just business in general?
Well, I think if you think you're so cool that you've built this whole thing yourself, you're wrong, and you better start knocking some sense into yourself. So there's a lot of talk and books on leadership, all this stuff, but to me it's really simple. If you better believe that the people around you are really helping everything look good and go well, because I know for a fact I wouldn't be worth much if I didn't have the team that I have around me, and that is the simple truth. I've got great people who accomplish great things, and as a result, it makes Place of Hope, stand out and is successful in the lives of kids. One of the things I love the most is if somebody a tour to one of our campuses. Typically, if you say you got an hour, I'll take you from this campus to across the street to another campus, and then you'll at least get to see a good microcosm of what we do. But you'll go to several places and maybe go into several different facilities just on one campus, and people will turn around and say to me, your people are always consistent. I met so-and-so over here, and I met Teresa here, and she was awesome. And because they're all sewing into this place and making it great. So I think in leadership, you better really understand that it's really about the people that are around you that are doing all the various jobs. I mean, my maintenance guys work like you can't even imagine. We don't have enough of them. And they're just constant. And there's always something broken. So, your team is what makes it great. I really believe that.
Well, I agree with that on a business level too, that you're only as great as the good people that are under you. And that's what makes a company work well. What I'd like to know is, you've delved into this for over 20 years now, and you've made it your life story. You're so passionate about what you do. How much does passion come into play in a work environment or nonprofit environment?
I think it's critical. I mean, with young people, even here, one of the things we do with them is to tell them is that it's not, don't just follow the herd of, everybody says you got to go to college, you got to get a degree, you got to do this, you got to do that. I mean, if you could do all that and get into a job that you absolutely hate getting up every single day. I have not disliked one day that I've been here at Place of Hope. Even when I was volunteering to help put it together, I have tough days. Don't get me wrong. In fact, yesterday was one of them. It was kind of ugly for me, but I didn't wake up this morning not wanting to come here. So I really do believe you have to have passion in no matter what you do. And you can even supplement that too. I mean, if you're doing something that maybe you're not 100% about, there's ways to make it better. There's ways to, get involved in where you're at and do better with it. But also maybe that's where volunteering at some charity for part of your evening or whatever can make your overall even better. But I don't know, I'm probably babbling a little bit right now, Bob, but I'm just a big believer in that. You have to have passion, because I'm as excited today as I was over 20 years ago when we started. I love what I do.
So the babbling was not true, because if you're passionate, that's what one does.
Right.
They babble and they
Yeah.
go on. So in closing, I just want to again reiterate, if you want more information, please go to placeofhope.com and you can find the story there and how you can get connected. And again, if you go to YouTube, look for Invisible, A Fight to End Human Trafficking documentary. It's about 28 minutes long. It's an amazing, compelling film. And Charles, I can't thank you enough for participating today. You're a great friend of mine. I love you. And
Thank you, buddy. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you all for everything. I see Carrie Stamp there too. Carrie, how you doing, buddy? No, I appreciate all you all have do such a great job at what you do to make the North County it's the place to live. We all can admit that, right? I mean, and I cover Boca and everywhere else. It's nice, but this is the best right here. So appreciate all of you for what you do.
Good. And I want to thank all the attendees. I want to thank about all the people who are on Facebook Live. This is recorded. It will be available afterwards if you'd like to see it again, or if you might have missed somebody, came in late, missed some segments. And again, Charles, thank you. Appreciate it and hope to see you soon.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Good job, guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.